you've come, Raven.
Fuck off, Hayabusa. I will execute my mission.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, I gotta open this review with a story because I wept when I finished Ninja Gaiden 4. Not because of anything that happened in the story, but more so because of the moment and what it meant to me. You see, growing up, I have this one core memory I always reflect on because it's just so funny how life works out. I was over at my childhood best friend's house, and my family was there with me, and it was his family and a couple of our other friends all hanging out. We were having dinner together. We were going around the table. What do you want to be when you grow up? So it gets to me, and I dare to say out loud, I want to play video games when I grow up. Everyone laughed, myself included, because I know it was like a very idealistic thing to say, but I feel very lucky that I did basically get blessed with that career in life, and I don't take it for granted. So it's moments like Ninja Gaiden 4 where I roll the credits and something hits me. I remember when I was much younger and I was buying games that were very bad, like Nickelodeon spin-off games, and I was upset talking to my dad. He said, hang on, let's do some research. Let's go look up some reviews and see if we can find out more about these games before you buy them. What are the top rated games? So we go to IGN.com and we start looking at the reviews and what are the top rated games? We're looking at Xbox, and there it is, Ninja Gaiden Black. I picked it up that day alongside Final Fantasy 12. All I saw was that Ninja Gaiden Black had a 9 out of 10. I did not know how absolutely difficult this game would be, but I picked it up and I loved it. It was my first real experience with reading and watching a review and then buying something. So to have that full circle moment where I finished Ninja Gaiden 4 and I started putting the notes down on paper and then I processed, I went, oh wow, like I get to be that reviewer here. It's an honor, and just thank you for allowing me to do this. It really hit me hard. But then the moment got even more emotional when some unfortunate news hit. The Ninja Gaiden director Tomonobu Itagaki had recently passed away, and it was really sad to see. We saw a lot of the Japanese game community mourning his passing. He's an absolute legend in the space. But if this is the passing of the torch truly with Ninja Gaiden, then we can say it is in good hands now with Platinum Games and Team Ninja. This is a beautiful partnership that does come out pretty flawed, definitely guilty pleasure style, but there was so much about the game that I enjoyed that all these flaws, which I will mention, kind of fell to the wayside and didn't matter by the time I had rolled the credits. I just felt such powerful love for what was here that, yeah, there's issues with the level design. The environments are not varied enough. It does repeat some bosses in the second half. The combat is a little more hack and slashy than I would have liked compared to older entries in the Ninja Gaiden series, but again, when I just size it up compared to the happiness the game brought me and the fun the game brought me, I kind of didn't care at the end of the day. Your mileage, of course, may vary, but I wanted to set the table with that, so let's begin. If you're new here and you're into nostalgic, retrospective, or of course the occasional day one-ish review, consider subscribing. So let's open up with this. I love the team up here between Platinum Games and Team Ninja because you can feel their spirits of game development in so many different pockets of this game. The way the characters are designed, you can tell who did what. Like Yakumo, the new protagonist of this game, is 1000% a Platinum Games character. He has all of the anime protagonist energy that leads from previous Platinum games, such as what we saw in Astral Chain had already had. Then you see characters like Sayori that absolutely have that Team Ninja spirit, like a character that was pulled straight out of Neo. But then you feel it in the game's design. The actual action combat of the game is so Platinum Games. They did all that. They were the main developers of the game. But then you see how the game does a lot with a little, which is something I've always attributed to Team Ninja's greatest strength. They just take this small amount of assets and then turn a full game into it and do a wonderful job with it. So both schools of thought are deeply packed into this game, and that's why, as a fan of both these companies, it makes for a real special recipe, especially when you've read the stories about what happened with Platinum Games and how a lot of their main leaders have gone. The question really was, can they make a great game nowadays? And the answer is they can make a pretty good one, a flawed one, yes, but they can still make really good action games. But enough dancing on the outside. What do you have here? You have a new protagonist that's got some Metal Gear Solid 2 energy, is how I'll put it. Like, you got a lot of Yakumo in this game, and so you get up close and personal with this edgy protagonist who talks in a low drawl, kind of like this. And he's always raring for a fight. Everything's always handled until he runs into Sayori, who tells him that if we remove the 3 seals of the Dark Dragon and bring the Dark Dragon back from the previous Ninja Gaiden games, that in fact we can now kill it because you're a Raven Ninja. Yeah, I'll just put that up front before I get into everything else I love. The story here is like not good. It's really, I know Ninja Gaiden stories in the past, like I always made jokes about how you'd have like Ryu in Tokyo and then all of a sudden he'd be in New York City the next mission. You're like, how did he do that? He just like boarded the plane. There's always been a level of ridiculousness in these plots, no doubt about it. But this one is just to a certain level, you just shut off your brain and go, okay, just get me to the next mission, please. When you combine that with the story also feeling a bit stretched out, like there are a couple of chapters in there that were way longer with Yakumo than when you get to Ryu, where it's a lot shorter and the game's pace kind of returns to the right area. It definitely, again, is a messy bunch when it comes to the story. And then I won't spoil, but the way the story kind of ends, I do have some qualms with how certain characters were handled. And then the final shot of the game, I'm like, what was that even for? So yeah, there's just a couple of things with the story that I'm not totally in love with, but it's a great vehicle for awesome action gameplay. So let's start breaking that down. If I were to compare this to prior Ninja Gaiden games, as someone who's played and beat all of these multiple times, I would say that Ninja Gaiden 4 finds itself closest to Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. It is a fast-paced action video game at its heart. It is not like Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 where things like counters are more deliberately timed and you're kind of waiting for your enemy to strike. It's not like Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 where you're gradually progressing certain weapons you like, such as leveling up your dragon sword or your lunar staff. It's not like that. It is a pure action game where it's rewarding your abilities to combo, outskill your enemies, and in the case of Ninja Gaiden 4, as I'll break down with some of the issues in combat, definitely spam the ultimate technique a lot. I think the flashy action is really fun, it's really good, but here's the thing that you might be wondering too if you're a longtime Ninja Gaiden fan. Okay, Maddie, how difficult is this game though? I would not put it in Ninja Gaiden 1 Black territory at all. Base Ninja Gaiden 2, I would also not put it there. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black though, I think we're pretty close to that there. Ninja Gaiden 4 is definitely a challenging video game. Okay, so why is this game challenging? Well, I played it on the normal difficulty, and enemies do hit pretty hard. That just alone already creates a challenge, but especially when you combine it with the pace of the game, you're reacting constantly. And the game is always telling you, go, 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 attack, 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 but it takes a while for you to wrap your brain around the idea that sometimes in this game, it's best just to cool it. And I do feel like that creates its own challenge because it is difficult to interrupt your own combos and like, oh no, I see someone attacking, I'm gonna dodge now. The tough part to balance with all of this is that sometimes enemies will keep attacking, and so you'll go a little bit of a stretch of time without throwing any attacks in. That's if you want to remain as unhit as possible. But that's where the mastery starts to kick in. There are enemy attack patterns to master and memorize. At the same time, some of the enemy variety did let me down because what you have here is a game where there's tons of enemy types, like they look different. You have fiends, you have demons, you have DDO soldiers, but each of them have like a strong, a weak, and a ranged variant, and there's no real approaching them specifically differently. You kind of just go in and will blam them and apply those same defensive techniques and you should be all right. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is you're not seeing an encounter and drawing a priority list in your head, maybe who you think the biggest pain in the ass would be, but it's not because of like a certain attack type that only they have. Only a couple of enemies hit those prerequisites, in particular the one that just poisons the entire field. My God, do I hate them. Those are the types of enemies that you target, but they're kind of few and far between. And given the pace of the game and sometimes how even small enemies like little floaty fishes can stagger you and then lead to stagger chains, it can sometimes just go from that tough challenge to feeling a touch bit unfair. As you're fighting through these enemies, heavy and light attacks are going to be your go-to here, similar to prior Ninja Gaiden games. You have an entire combo list in this game per weapon, and it'll be inputs such as doing a full circle with your left analog stick and then pressing the X button or up, down, Y to open up a combo. Like they'll have inputs such as that, which can lead to different combo opportunities. When an enemy is missing a limb, just like in prior Ninja Gaiden games, you go in and obliterate them and tear them in half. It is still as satisfying as ever. As you're obliterating enemies or taking damage, or basically doing anything, you're building up your Blood Raven gauge, or if you were playing as Ryu, it's your Gleam form. You basically use this on certain enemies that are about to attack you with unblockables or undodgeables that you want to hit them with this special type of attack in those moments. It's also the type of attack that can break an opponent's guard. So if you really want to put on the pressure, you can choose to use it then, but it can be costly if you're irresponsible with it. Again, I think a lot of people, myself included, will fall into the hack and slash pattern, and you'll realize if you don't break your brain out of that, this game will whoop you. There are 4 weapon types you can use. Some are good for AoE, some are a little bit better for one-on-one. I didn't feel the differentiation of like attack speed and combo types and damage dealt was varied like prior Ninja Gaiden games, where I really was like, do I use the Dragon Sword for a while or do I stick with the Lunar Staff? There really wasn't that feeling for me here, and that's because some of your build crafting and scaling, if you want to talk about it like that, really came from the accessory system. So there were accessories that, for example, would only empower the Dragon Sword, but if you did that, you would take more damage. I thought that type of accessory was a really cool trade-off. But the 4 weapon types, to me, felt like more personal preference rather than actual situational use. Again, outside of the staff you get, which can hit multiple enemies at once, which is very useful. Otherwise, though, I found myself just kind of using what I thought was cool. Let's break down some defensive options here, because this is something I was a little bit unsure of when I did preview Ninja Gaiden 4 a couple of months ago. So you have a perfect dodge that you can do in this game, which is like in every single Platinum game. What I'm here to tell you is that this is not like Bayonetta or Nier Automata, where you are perfect dodging everything under the sun, time is constantly slowing down, and you are absolutely whooping every enemy in sight. That is a form of defense here, but it's number one, more difficult to pull off that perfect dodge, but also not as useful as in other Platinum games. The real best defense for me was perfect blocking. When you did that and you see the flash on screen, you press Y and you dash through an opponent and cut their arm off, right away they're in that one-hit obliterate state. However, pulling that off means you have to not button mash, because blocking is a lot more deliberate. I do wish it was blocking and then pressing an attack button, kind of like prior Ninja Gaiden games, where it would be a little bit more of a deliberate counter, because sometimes you'll accidentally counter opponents, like you'll both attack at the same time because you're just button mashing away, and you see that flash and you press Y and it kind of robs you of a little bit of the I did that, and more like, oh, thank goodness that happened. And I think, again, that's where it gets a little button mashy, a little hack and slashy, too much in that direction, rather than, I think, Ninja Gaiden's original, more deliberate difficulty style. The game is also more item dependent. You'll have healing items, you can recharge your Blood Raven gauge, you can have items that increase your defense or attack. In particular, the increase on defense is insanely good. Like, you take 0 damage. So if there is a boss that would be giving you any sort of trouble, or an encounter giving you any sort of trouble, while the items are expensive to replenish, this is like your get out of jail free card. Something that I personally feel the Ninja Gaiden games before were pretty absent of. Really, where I think the game shines the most, it reminded me a lot of Metal Gear Rising, is in those one-on-one fights. It's less about the mob fights, which are also very fun. Those one-on-one fights, though, where you have that moment of your defense is on point and you're timing things well and you're just seeing the picture despite it being such a fast-paced game. That is where it is pure Platinum, and it feels most at home with one-on-one combat. Now, I talked about how in older Ninja Gaiden games, like, you'd spend money and upgrade your weapon's stats. You don't really have that here. If you were to talk about progression systems in this game, they still exist, but you'll have a ninja that appears that you can upgrade your combat techniques with. These are things like unlocking the Azuma drop and other iconic Ninja Gaiden moves, or increasing how many accessory slots you have. Nearing like the 70% mark of the game, you'll likely have all these upgrades and no more to really go through. The other progression system in this game is per weapon. So as you kill enemies or complete challenges that we'll talk about, you'll get these weapon skill points that you can spend on specific weapon combos. Again, all the inputs per weapon are roughly the same. So if you learn one, you learn them all, which is kind of, again, what I talked about earlier on how it's a pick your preference, pick your poison type of combat system, which I think will work for some, but not everyone. And then the accessories are, I think, the best part of picking your playstyle, because it's like, do I want more defensively minded options, like increase my defense dramatically, and that takes up 3 accessory slots, and I have 1 spot left for like bloodbath kills, restoring some of my health. You have some options there that I think are pretty cool. But overall, I would view it as a bit of a step back from older Ninja Gaiden games. And the other thing that I would view as a pretty big step back is the level design. Not only do these environments get stale pretty fast, where you see like the same blank white DDO walls, but it's just the actual exploration of it itself. Ninja Gaiden is typically packed with lots of secrets, and this game occasionally has those moments where you'll go off the beaten track and you'll find a little something, but sometimes the loot's underwhelming. Like, I one time went way out of my way and found a chest that just had an elixir in it, like a minor elixir at that. I found that in particular very underwhelming, but it's not like how you'd find chests that have like 1 life of the god and you collect a bunch of those and they turn into lives of the 1,000 gods. Like, in this game, you have a phantasmal herb, you have another item type. Both of these happen pretty often and they increase Yakumo's health. Ryu does have Lives of the Thousand Gods, but it's so like jammed into 3 chapters that it feels a little forced. But it's not like you're gradually increasing your Nimpo and your health and kind of being rewarded for exploring level, or in some cases in Ninja Gaiden games of yore, finding alternative optional weapons. You don't have that here. So I just found that exploration a bit lacking, and what they replace it with is optional missions. This is a little Astral Chain coded, so in Astral Chain, you'd go back to the police department and you'd actually accept new optional missions that would bring you back to that mission space. It would be a whole new task, a whole new structure and narrative for that section of the game. In Ninja Gaiden 4, as you're going along, you'll get to these little stations that, by the way, the Darkness Terminal has the most vibey music. It's so good. So you'll have these moments where you hit these stations and you'll have missions that you can accept. A lot of times it's just like kill 80 of these enemies. Sometimes it's like execute this specific enemy type that's like down this hallway. There is no map or way to kind of track where you're at to hunt down these collectibles or these missions. So you just kind of wander and check every hallway that you can find. But again, these are few and far between, and I felt it was a bit lacking on that front. Instead, what you do find from time to time are these purgatory gates, and these are effectively a set of trials that you go through where it's combat at its most difficult. You start it up and you can pick how much health you want to start this fight with. If you pick a lower health count, then you'll get more ninja coins and weapon experience in turn. Obviously, that makes it a lot more difficult, especially with later fights in the game have tons and tons of waves. I like it. I just wish there was more on top of this because, again, it's just more of a thing that you're already doing, which is fighting constantly. The last complaint I do have on level design is how on rails it is, not just in linearity, but I mean literally on rails, like grapple sections, wall running sections, all painted yellow. It's very simplistic, and I do feel like the older Ninja Gaiden games also did that a lot better. It's cool for the cinematic moment here and there, but as you get into the deeper parts of the game and you see it happening again and again and again, it just feels a little overused. Still, again, combat's really fun. The spectacle is really nice when the big fights are happening. The actual mob enemy fights feel really good. The music is awesome. Like, everything feels good, feels cool. But yeah, when you break it down on a granular level, like if I were to draw a comparison to this, it probably sounds a lot like when I talked about Sonic Frontiers. Like, it's a hard 7 out of 10, but it's a really good, that hits kind of right, 7 out of 10. So after you beat this game, you unlock a trial mode, so you can go in and do a bunch of optional fights that I've been sifting through. You can do them on all types of difficulties, so you can have fun with that. A new difficulty is unlocked. You can also play all the main story missions as Ryu now. So there's a couple of other things that you could do once you beat the game. I would say the game has meat on its bones, but if you're looking at sort of the creme de la creme platinum games, like for me, it's something like I would say Astral Chain, where that was like a 30+ hour game of just like raw story and content, and there was a lot more optional objectives around it. I feel like it may be thin in comparison, but overall, it gets the job done. And so that's Ninja Gaiden 4. Very close to Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge in its action combat. Very fun to play. Definitely not a great time to explore, but I just love playing the game. Ryu's got a cool factor to him that I enjoy a lot. So does Yakumo. So do these weapons. So does the obliteration techniques. There's just something that I like pump my fist after every fight when you just get that final obliteration technique on that like one enemy that's been nagging you all fight. So I think the game, despite its flaws, is still pretty good. I just think you should go in expecting a lot of these issues to wear you down. At first, it doesn't appear like that'll be the case, but as the game gets longer and longer than you'd probably anticipate, that's when those issues start to settle in a little bit, especially with some longer chapters compared to most. So those are my thoughts on Ninja Gaiden 4. Keen to get yours down below. Will you be checking it out? I had a great time with it, so I think you should look into it, especially if you are a Ninja Gaiden fan. Other than that, though, I hope you take excellent care of yourselves, and I will catch you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.